Hello, I'm Alan, and welcome to today's edition of Alan's Cycling Adventures. Today we are riding to Wooster, Ohio. Looks like it could be a tougher day than yesterday. It's a shorter day by about 10 miles, but about double the climbing. I felt pretty good yesterday, so we'll see how I feel today. Anyway, if you enjoyed today's video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Click the subscribe button to subscribe to my channel, and if you have any questions, comments, suggestions, or ideas for future editions of Alan's Cycling Adventures, be sure to leave them in the comments below. Well, without further ado, let's ride.
So the first thing I'd like to talk about was the weather on today's ride. If you watched my video yesterday for day 37, I did mention in that video that I was planning on wearing arm and leg warmers today. The reason for that was because of the weather forecast. Last night they were calling for it to be in the low 50s at the start and stay in the 50s, maybe get into the upper 50s, but never reach the 60s throughout our ride. However, when I rechecked the weather in the morning, they were calling for it being in the mid-50s at 7 a.m., and they were right, but they were calling for it getting into the 60s by 10 a.m. and staying that way for the rest of the ride with no mention of rain in the forecast. So I took that on face value and made a game time decision not to wear the arm and leg warmers. Boy, did that turn out to be a mistake. Because, yes, it was in the mid-50s at the start, but I'm not sure it ever made it into the 60s. I actually think it was colder at the finish than it was at the start. I think it was in the low 50s by the time we got to the hotel. And it rained. Not hard, but just enough to make you feel a little extra miserable. As a matter of fact, I didn't realize how cold I was until I got into Wooster and spotted a Subway and decided that was where I was going to stop for my food and chocolate milk break. When I went into the Subway, I ran into Jeff shortly afterwards. It's kind of funny. It seems like I'm always running into Jeff whenever I stop for food, either Jeff or Steve or both. But we're, the food crew, I guess. Anyway, so I ran into Jeff. We both had subs and had our lunch. And when we went into the Subway, it was drizzling by the time we got there. Just a little bit, just enough to make you a little extra miserable. But Jeff commented on how cold it was. By the way, Jeff is from Minnesota. I believe that's a cold state. So when you have somebody from Minnesota commenting on how cold it is, it's probably cold out. Anyway, so Jeff had commented on how cold it was, and we were going to be really cold by the time we got to the hotel. And he was not wrong. As a matter of fact, by the time we left Subway, I was shivering. And I got outside. It was even colder outside than it was inside the Subway. And it had started drizzling a little bit harder. And so, yeah, I was pretty cold by the time I got to the hotel. As a matter of fact, we were about 2.5 miles from the hotel at that point, and it was almost entirely downhill to the hotel. And at one point, I was trying to decide, do I want to get to the hotel as fast as I possibly can, or do I want to ride the brakes a little bit and take it a little bit slower so as not to have quite so much wind cooling me off? I was opting for the former and going as fast as I could, and at some point I noticed Jeff was no longer behind me, and I thought, well, I guess he opted to stay a little bit warmer and take a little bit longer, and so I slowed up and waited for him to catch up to me. It actually turns out that he had gone over a hole in the road and was concerned about the noise or the sound that his bike made. And so he was taking it a little bit easy. Not because he was cold, but because he didn't want, just to be safe, make sure that he didn't damage his bike or something. By the way, he didn't. He checked it out when we got to the hotel. Everything's fine. He's good to go for tomorrow. But yeah, as a matter of fact, because of the rain, my bike has disc brakes. My disc brakes get quite loud when they get wet. And when they get loud, they trigger the incident detection on my Garmin. Usually when the incident detection goes off, it gives me like 15 seconds or whatever it is on the Garmin to cancel the incident detection before it actually sends the text message with my location and the fact that it detected an incident. For whatever reason, it didn't come up on the Garmin screen, so I had no way of canceling the incident detection, and so it sent the message. But by the time that happened, I was only a few blocks from the hotel and was shivering quite a bit. And my son got the text, and he called me to make sure I was okay, and I was so close to the hotel. I'm like, I got to get to the hotel. And then he calls me a second time, and at that point I was pulling up outside the hotel. I answered the phone. I was like, I'm fine. I got to get inside and get warmed up. I'll call you back. And you'll see that I actually recorded the afterword for this video inside the hotel rather than outside because I wanted to get out of the cold. And as soon as I possibly could, I got some coffee and used that to help warm up. Let's see. In terms of today's ride, as I mentioned, we rode to Wooster, Ohio. I started at 7:05 a.m. At the start, it was cloudy and 55 degrees Fahrenheit with a feels-like temperature of 55 degrees Fahrenheit. The humidity was 85%, and the wind was 4.3 miles per hour from the north. The length of today's ride was 98.70 miles, and I had an average moving speed of 15.5 miles per hour, which was pretty good for a ride of that length, especially since I don't think we had a tailwind at any point today. And we had some significant climbing today, especially in the last 20 miles. So yes, my average moving speed was 15.5 miles per hour. My maximum speed was 41.7 miles per hour. I'm pretty sure I know when that occurred. It was going down one of the hills in that last 20 miles. I had been riding, I think it was with Jeff, and Jeff had fallen behind me on one of the climbs, and on the descent after the climb, he passed me like I was standing still, and so I shifted into my highest gear, started pedaling as hard as I could so that I could pass him again. But anyway, if he listens to this, he'll now know that I was not just coasting, I was pushing hard to catch up to him. My total moving time today was 6 hours, 22 minutes, and 6 seconds. And my elapsed time was 8 hours, 7 minutes, and 1 second. My average heart rate today was 115 beats per minute, and my max heart rate was 139 beats per minute. As is always the case whenever I have my full heart rate data, Garmin and Strava, I think, underestimate the number of calories that I burned, because yesterday it was close to 5,000. And today it's only estimating 1,945 calories, which I don't think is correct. My average cadence today was 66 RPM, and my max cadence was 116 RPM. In terms of elevation gained, I gained 3,896 feet according to Strava's map data, and 4,085 feet according to Garmin's barometric data. I had a total of 24,083 pedal strokes according to my cadence sensor, and according to Strava, my average power output was 118 watts. There were 5 Garmin climbs on today's ride. All 5 were pretty much in the last 20 to 25 miles, and all right after that second sag stop. The first one started at 75.1 miles, and it was 1.19 miles in length. We gained 276 feet with an average gradient of 4%. Second one started at 77.4 miles. It was 1.63 miles in length. We gained 351 feet at an average gradient of 4%. The third one started right at 80 miles. It was 0.68 miles in length. We gained 180 feet with an average gradient of 5%. The fourth one started at 83.6 miles. It was 0.4 miles in length. We gained 135 feet at an average gradient of 6%. And the fifth one started at 90 miles. It was 1.62 miles in length. We gained 269 feet at an average gradient of 3%. Once again, interspersed with all of those official Garmin climbs were a bunch of steep, short climbs that Garmin did not call climbs. So like I said, the last 20 to 25 miles, there was a lot of climbing. Most of the climbing on the day, I think, was in that last 20 to 25 miles. In terms of where we rode today, we started in Marysville, Ohio. The entire ride was in Ohio. We went into New Dover, Ostrander, White Sulphur, Scioto, Delaware, Kilbourne, South Woodbury, Marengo, that's where the first sag was. I actually just noticed that I'm running out of time with this recording, so I will put the cities in the description. Tomorrow we're riding to Niles, Ohio. It's another difficult day, 93.3 miles. Less climbing though, 3,346 feet. Should be a good day, and then we've got one more day, and then our next rest day. Anyway, that's all for now, and so I will see you all tomorrow.
Wow, that last 15, 20 miles was pretty challenging, and it got cold and it started raining, so that's why I'm inside to warm up. Anyway, until next time, stay safe out there.